Hello, everybody. This chapter is Principle of Risk Management, offering an overview of the basic principles of risk management. First, let's get to know what the risk is. We begin by distinguishing between uncertainty and risk. Uncertainty exists whenever one does not know for sure what will occur in the future. Risk is uncertainty what matters because it affects people's welfare. According to these two descriptions, we can find that uncertainty is a necessary but not a sufficient condition for risk, and every risky situation is uncertain. But there can be uncertainty without risk. Suppose that you plan to have a party and you invite a dozen of your friends. Your best guess is that 10 of the 12 invitees will come. But there is uncertainty, all 12 might show up or only 8. If you plan to make a reservation of a restaurant for dinner, and the restaurant requires to order and pay in advance. If you pay for 12 invitees in advance, but only 8 of them come out, the food and the cost of other 4 people will be a waste. Now, the uncertainty affects your cost for the party, so it's a risk. But if you would like to hold the party at home and to order takeaway for dinner in terms of how many guests come out, in this case, the uncertainty of the number of guests does not affect the waste of food and the cost for the party. There is uncertainty but no risk. Risk aversion is a characteristic of an individual's preferences in risk-taking situations. It is a measure of willingness to pay to reduce one's exposure to risk. In evaluating trade-offs between the costs and the benefits of reducing risk, risk-averse people prefer the lower-risk alternatives for the same cost. For example, if you are generally willing to accept a lower expected rate of return on an investment because it offers a more predictable rate of return, you are risk-averse. When choosing among investment alternatives with the same expected rate of return, a risk-averse individual chooses the alternative with the lowest risk. Let's continue to see the example 1. Suppose that you prefer to take dinner in a restaurant for all guests who participate in the party. Are there any alternative courses of action to reduce the risk of the number of guests? Yes, of course. The first one is that you could order enough for 12 together with an option to return any surplus to the caterer for a refund. Or instead, you could order enough for only 8 together with an option to order more at the last minute if you need it. You almost surely will have to pay extra for these options. Thus, there is a trade-off between the benefit of eliminating the risk of having the wrong amount of food and the cost of that risk reduction. The process of formulating the benefit-cost trade-offs of risk reduction and deciding on the course of action to take, including the decision to take no action at all, is called risk management. Risk management decisions are made under conditions of uncertainty and therefore multiple outcomes are possible. After the fact, only one of these outcomes will occur. Note that neither recriminations nor congratulations for decisions seem warranted when such are based on information not available at the time the decision was made. Besides, the appropriateness of a risk management decision should be judged in the light of the information available at the time the decision is made. To eliminate the risk of a decline in house prices over the next 3 months, Joe agrees to sell his house 3 months from now at a price of $100,000. After 3 months, by the time of the transfer of ownership and the conclusion of the sale, housing prices have gone up, and it turns out that Joe could have gotten $150,000 for his house. Should Joe chastise himself for his decision to eliminate his price risk? No. Based on the information Joe had at the time and his preference to eliminate risk, Joe made the right decision. If you face a particular type of risk because of your job, the nature of your business, or your pattern of consumption, you are said to have a particular risk exposure. For example, if you are a temporary office worker, your exposure to the risk of a layoff is relatively high. If you are a tenured professor at a major university, your exposure to the risk of a layoff is relatively low. When assessing a risk, the riskiness of an asset or a transaction cannot be assessed in isolation or in the abstract. Besides, in one context, the purchase or sale of a particular asset may add to your risk exposure. In another, the same transaction may be risk-reducing. For example, if a farmer with wheat ready to be harvested enters a contract to sell wheat at a fixed price in the future, the contract is risk-reducing. But for someone who has no wheat to sell, entering into that same contract is to speculate that wheat prices will fall because they profit only if the market price at the contract delivery date is below the contractually fixed price. Speculators are defined as investors who take positions that increase their exposure to certain risks in the hope of increasing their wealth. In contrast, hedgers take positions to reduce their exposures. In former example, the farmer who enters the contract is a hedger, and the people who has no wheat to sell and enter into that same contract is a speculator. The same person can be a speculator on some exposures and a hedger on the others. In summary, in this section, we have studied the concepts of risk, risk aversion, risk management, and risk exposure. That's all about this section. Bye.